achieving women move out of the hustle and into the safety in their bodies, rewiring the subconscious patterns that keep them stuck. And she is the founder of Divine Timing Hypnocoaching, working with one-on-one clients, hosting group meditations, which I will be a part of soon, creating personalized meditation recordings, and we can find her on Instagram. We have that up on the screen here, which is Isabella. Is it Lopez? I want to make sure I pronounce that.
So it's Jopies because it's
Oh,
the double
thank you.
L. Yeah.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
It's like
Okay.
Spanish, so the
Got
double L
it.
makes kind of like a J or a Y sound.
Yeah, understood.
Jopies.
Got that. Okay, perfect. And then website is divinetiminghhypnocoaching.com. So welcome. Appreciate you. We're going to kind of talk through some signs and synchronicities today. And yeah, I'd love for you to kind of introduce yourself and maybe give us a little idea of who you are.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so
Mhm.
much for having me. I think it's such a beautiful way for, people to get together and just like discuss the things that like sometimes people think are a little too woo-woo or, oh, it's just coincidence. But I love that we like agree that, it's like signs from the universe, kind of getting these little moments where you're like, oh, does that mean something? So I love that we have this forum to discuss. So thank you.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, so I am a hypnotist. I use hypnosis to guide women into becoming aware of certain repeating patterns that they keep showing up in their lives, right? By accessing the subconscious, by going into like that trance state, into a meditative state. So that way you can, become aware, identify the things that you no longer want or no longer feel good in your life, so you can release that and make room for more joy, more happiness, more authenticity, instead of the things that were kind of programmed into us from society, from our parents, from our teachers. So it's been a blessing. I discovered this work as a client first, right? I was going through a very difficult time in my life, and I found myself doing things that I like didn't want to do, but I just continued doing because they gave me some sort of comfort, or they were familiar. And talk therapy wasn't working anymore because there's only so much that you can consciously kind of talk your way out of, when it comes to, repeating patterns. And someone asked me if I'd ever just tried hypnosis, and it like changed my life. I mean, it really helped me become aware of things that I was doing and the why behind why I was doing it, which is really the important part. Um, and so, yeah, that I've always been sort of spiritual, right? I've always loved crystals. My mom's always been that way. Um, but we were raised kind of Catholic, so it was always kind of weird. Like, oh, is spirituality? Like, is it real? Is it God? Is it, the universe? And I don't really think any of that matters. I mean, I think it's whatever you want to call it, right? God, spirit, universe. I think it's all just like the divine. And so in this work, I have learned to tap into that and to tap into things that just feel true to me, right? I don't know if this is what other people are doing. I don't know if, this is the proper way to cleanse your energy or anything like that. It's just what feels intuitive to me. Um, and so, yeah, I love that we're kind of talking about like signs and synchronicities, because that's one of the first things that I started noticing. It was like angel numbers, right? Repeating numbers. When I first started doing this
Mhm.
work and moving out of like that survival mode, I finally started seeing like repeating numbers everywhere. And to me, it's like, the universe has always been showing you these signs. But when you've dropped your guard enough, right? You start to feel a little bit of safety instead of constantly being in fight or flight. You start noticing those signs.
Right.
Um, and so,
So
yeah,
true.
that's kind of how I came into all of this.
Yeah, that's so amazing. Yeah, and thank you for sharing that story. I feel like I resonate with that a lot, and definitely with just being present, to be able to get these signs. But I've personally been getting them this whole time. It just, for me, I feel like manifested through like my health and particularly like seizures that I've had and experienced. I feel like where me not listening to those types of signs, and now that I am um, able to, stay present and receive, my health has been so much better with that. And as you're speaking of coming out of fight or flight mode, and just being more safe in my own body. So yeah, everything that you're honestly saying is speaking right to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's crazy how when you just start not even really looking, but just like noticing, right?
Yeah.
That's when you start seeing things, and that's kind of just how I feel about like meditation in general. I know a lot of people describe meditation as like turning your mind off, but like we're human, you can't
Yeah.
really turn it off. What it is to me is kind of just like going inward and just like noticing the things around you, and that's when I get kind of the most messaging from like the universe. You just start realizing things that like you've always seen or you've always heard or whatever, but
Yeah.
it suddenly like gets a different meaning, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree. And I could speak to just also asking for me has been a big thing, just actually asking the universe for, my guides, for help or for guidance has been something. And also, I've been encouraged by others to be journaling or keeping track. I know you also have journaling, that you provide as well. So I feel like that's definitely important is just documenting it and putting it into words. I feel like is part of this process as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's sort of it's the same as, just noticing, because when you think it just goes so fast, right? There's so many thoughts racing through our minds, but kind of taking the time to write it down, to put pen to paper, helps you really see things a little bit more clearly. Um, and I think it also just depends on where you are in certain stages. Certain times I don't want to journal, you
Yeah.
know, but you're still it's just more like having that curiosity, like, does this mean something? Is this a sign? Did I hear like this used to happen to me all the time. I would, um, think about somebody and get like a message from them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would like suddenly be in the middle of doing something and you hear like your ear ringing,
Mm-hmm.
different things like that where I mean, is it a sign? I think so, but it's more the questioning behind it. Like when you just stop and go like, what does this mean? Like, what does this mean to me? What does this person calling me mean? And
Mm-hmm.
you kind of start adding a little bit of just by noticing it, you start adding more energy towards it,
Yeah,
adding your
for sure.
intention towards it. And I think that goes back to like manifesting. That's how you start manifesting certain things by noticing the things to be grateful for, the positive things in your
Mm-hmm.
life, right? Even if
Yeah.
it's, oh, I just thought about you. You gave me a call.
Yep.
Or, I love this song and the song reminds you about something else, like someone else in your life. All those things. Then you start just kind of giving it your energy, which starts, bringing you into a different vibration, into a higher vibration that
Mm-hmm.
just makes you happier. So I always say,
Yeah.
like, whether this stuff is real or not, I mean, to someone it might not be. But if it helps me and it makes me feel good and it brings me into a better state in my life, then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm gonna think it's real. I'm gonna
Yeah,
call it
exactly.
real.
Right. Right. And it's the power of the mind and our thoughts and what we create. Yes. And I feel like that's an important conversation. And, the negative thoughts do create those negative experiences if we allow
Yeah.
them to. Yeah. And the power there for me has been being able to ask for guidance and then being able to be present and actually hear or, see whichever that is, how it comes through. Because I find for me, it comes through in like funny ways too, of just like, seeing things on license plates or different words or numbers that just show up on like somebody's shirt or etc. So yeah, so
Cool.
I feel like yeah, just kind of and through animals.
Mhm.
Lately for me, it's been a lot of like hawks flying overhead.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so I feel like it's getting louder, and also actually I'm also being more present. So yeah, it's just kind of within that. time of being able to be grateful is when I find I have the most connection.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. I think we get, especially with, the media and just constantly having social media and having a 24-hour news cycle, it's so easy to go down like that negative, get caught up in that because that's what is addicting, right? To the
Yep.
brain. I mean, our brain is always looking for patterns. And so, we're always looking, it's always looking to protect us. And
Mm-hmm.
so, if it hears anything negative, it's going to want to go there. It's like it's designed to do
Right.
that. And so that's why, choosing to kind of focus on the negative, on the positive, or just
Mm-hmm.
taking those little moments like journaling or like meditating to just, or even just to say 5 things you're grateful for.
Yep.
Doing those things helps you, like you say, stay present, right? In the moment instead of worrying about the past or the present. And it helps us stay like in the flow of like the positivity in those
Yep.
higher vibrations instead of going into like the darkness where you are so overwhelmed that you can't notice the signs of the
Right.
universe,
Yep.
even asking for, because I was just thinking today I had to go to a coffee shop that's on a main street, it's parallel parking. And I was like, oh, I hope I find parking right in front. And instead I switched it to, I am asking to find parking right in front. I asked the
Yep.
universe
Mm-hmm.
to help me find parking right in front,
Yep.
close to the store. And
Yep.
I found parking,
Yep.
just by like
Yeah.
asking
Exactly. I
and
love that.
not
I started doing
worrying.
that too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And not worrying
absolutely.
exactly. And just
Right.
going and surrender and know it's gonna be there. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
And
that.
and so that's like, it's like, is it coincidence? I mean, I guess, but to me, I believe it's the universe, you know,
Yep.
giving you what you want, because I always say the universe is always conspiring in your highest and greatest good.
Mm-hmm.
It wants what's best for you.
Yep.
We're the ones that get stuck in our own way.
Yeah. That's so
And
true.
we also like my practice is called divine timing because I believe that, it will find you in divine timing. Sometimes we want
Yep.
to rush healing or we want to rush, we always want the end product. We never want to get the journey, do the journey getting there.
Yep. Yeah.
But it's all going to happen in divine timing. So if you don't get the parking spot right in front, it's because you're meant to keep going down the road a
Yep.
little bit and find something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I've been really inspired by I think her name's Gabby Bernstein, who's really talked a lot about this topic of just being like rejection is protection in our life. And
mhm.
I've really taken that to heart because I feel like I had to work on that, and that's kind of how that goes. But yeah, so I find now when things don't go my way to really be able to just be grateful that it's protecting me from something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, it's so much better than just being in a bad mood or being mad or
Yeah, or being
etc.
kind of in that victim mentality of like,
Yep.
why me? Why can't I get parking in front? Or,
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
why aren't these things happening for me when it's like, we just don't see the bigger picture, right? We're very zoomed in. And so we're just worried about like the parking. But
Hmm.
there's a whole bigger picture going on, who you're going to meet, what the times that you're going to be in there, like all of
Right.
those things, like that is all part of like a plan,
It
you
is. Yeah.
know? And we just
So
have to
true.
like surrender, which is so hard.
Yep.
So hard for humans. It's
Yep.
it's hard. We are programmed to like try to be in control, to try to to control things. I mean, in and of itself, that's crazy. What do we have control over? Nothing.
Right. Yeah.
Nothing,
Yep.
you know?
Yeah. I've had the most success when I've let go of that idea that I can control anything.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yep.
absolutely.
Do you find that that's something that you work with, like with clients a lot?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Especially as women,
Mm.
I think we are programmed to take care of everyone else, right?
Yep.
Worry, anticipate everyone's needs, perform for those needs, always be happy, always be smiling, always be of service. And it definitely, takes a toll on our nervous system, on our immune systems. We are constantly trying to anticipate everything. And,
Yep.
that's impossible. I mean, we're literally given an impossible job.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
Um, and so,
But we
yeah,
try.
we try, and we
Yep.
do a pretty good job too,
Yeah. Yep.
but there's only so much that you can truly control, right? And I really think only your emotions, not even your emotions, your reactions is what like we can control. And sometimes we can't even control those,
Yep.
we might react first and then go, oh wait, hold on.
Yep.
Let me
Yeah.
change that
Let me
perspective.
try again.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
that's pretty much all we have control over.
Yep. Yeah, I would say like being triggered, is something we can all relate to as humans. We're all triggered. And for me, being a parent and I have 3 daughters, that's helped me really, I think, grow as a person and that perspective of now being able to look back. But in the time, I'm sure I was not regulated. But now I'm able to kind of see like how that feels when I'm being triggered. And I feel like that's helped me now to just be able to realize what that feels like physically,
Right.
because for everybody it may be different, but I know now what that feels like for me, like when something is coming up for me. And that doesn't mean you need to bring it up, or I just know it's for me, I need to make a note of that
Yeah.
and maybe figure that out and not, react to that
Yeah.
person, especially with the work that I do. I work with children. I can't react in any way. I need to really just be calm, and I feel like that also helps me as well. And I feel like for you, you could probably relate to that with the work that you do. It helps you that you are in a calm state, probably naturally now, but also that you do that now, in your work.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say naturally, right? There's a lot of work that
Yeah.
goes into sort
Well,
of
it looks
staying.
natural, so I guess that calls to the
Thank
work
you.
that you're
Yeah,
doing.
exactly.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
we I was actually just at a meditation retreat in Sedona a couple weeks ago, which is fantastic.
Amazing.
Um, and we were all sort of talking about why we meditate, like, right? What's the reason sort of for meditation? And for a lot of us, it was just so that we can be nice, so that we
Yep.
can be nicer people, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to get stuck in that survival mode. And then, like, animals, I was actually just watching a clip the other day of a lion. A cub fell into the water, and the lioness is trying to get him out, and the big lion comes and kind of snaps at her, and she snaps at him, and then she gets the cub out, and then
Oh my
that's
gosh.
literally, I
Yeah.
mean, that's the animal instinct, right? To just,
Yep.
it's not okay, let me take a breath, let me let the cub try to come
Mm-mm.
out. No, it's to
No.
just react and be
Yep.
primal. And
Yeah.
so that's why I meditate. It's to not have those sort of primal instincts come out and constantly
Mm-hmm.
be on the defensive, or constantly be, fighting for life.
Yep.
Because, you don't enjoy it that way. It passes by,
Yep.
flies by, and it's you're not present, right? You're not in the
Mm-hmm.
moment. You're not being able to experience the good things that are happening, anything. And then even the bad things, you don't experience those either, which then
Mm-hmm.
doesn't let you feel the good things when they're around. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's just either you're numbing, or you're constantly in the dirt, just
Yep.
like
It's
dealing with all
judging,
the
right?
right.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, I think that brings to our other topic of like the shadow work of that is like not allowing us to have those, feelings sometimes too, and numbing it out, like you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
absolutely.
I can relate to that as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why, a big, one of my big ways that I kind of, before I would deal with my emotions, was numbing, was avoiding, and was like numbing with, you know, drugs, with TV, with food,
Yep.
all sleeping. Oh, I could sleep all day when I was
Yeah.
depressed,
Yep.
because I didn't want to deal with the pain, right? It felt
Right.
too big. And I didn't know how to deal with those emotions. So it was just easier to shove them down with food, with work, numb them, quiet them with like prescription drugs, with weed, with all the things that like, it's not to say these things don't help people, but when you're just doing it to numb, to not
Yep.
feel,
Yep.
you're doing yourself a disservice,
Right. Right.
Um
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And would you say that that is in most cases like a root cause is comes through in those scenarios for people, like in your experience?
Yeah, well, there's
Yeah.
like a route that you are avoiding, right?
Yeah.
So I believe that when we are young and we don't have, we depend on adults around us to take care of our needs. When something happens and your needs weren't met, you create a protective behavior,
Yep.
right? So whatever it might have been, for me, it might have been eating, right? If I didn't have my needs met by the adults around me, food was a comfort, became a comfort for me.
Yep.
So throughout my entire life, whenever I would get emotional, whether it was good, whether it was bad, whether it was boredom, any emotion, food was a fix for, right?
Mhm.
And then eventually you get older and suddenly, you know, weed takes that place. And
Mhm.
so you start smoking a little bit too much. And then you get a little older and then alcohol takes that place. Or,
Yep.
TV, social media, all the things that just numb us.
Yeah. Try to
Ins-
fill the hole.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because we don't by that point, we don't even know what the root cause is anymore,
Right.
right? We have like
Yeah.
we've
So
numbed
true.
it so hard and we've shoved it down so
Yeah.
far that we don't even know what the root is. But
Mhm.
it absolutely was something from in my belief when you were a child that did not get fulfilled,
Right.
right? And so you had to create this to keep you safe. It was all to keep you safe. But then eventually they're not safe anymore, or they don't feel good anymore. And
Mhm.
you just don't know how to break those ties without kind of getting into the subconscious and like figuring out why it is that you do that,
Right.
you
Yeah,
know?
which is why I love like hypno therapy and why I studied it as well. And I recently certified because for me, I feel like it really touches on allowing somebody to have the power. Once you help someone, you could probably speak to this because I'm not practicing quite yet, of being able then to teach somebody to then be able to connect on their own to their own, in my words, of connecting to their own higher self then or their own subconscious, right? And that's what my goal is to help other people then be able to do this because we all have the ability to do this type of work. It's just being able to be present and allow ourselves to do it is just me speaking on this
Yeah.
side of it. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, we all so that's absolutely the point of my work, right? Hypnosis is
Hmm.
just I'm just like a guide that's showing you sort of how to connect with your higher self, right?
Yep.
How to connect with your body, how to connect with your heart, which is where I believe like our soul, our higher
Yep.
self lives.
Hmm.
Um, it's how to connect with that so that at any moment, because human life is hard, right? As we already touched on. It is
Yeah.
hard. So things are going to come up, emotions are going to come up, triggers are going to come up, and you can connect with that at any time through your breath, right? Because our breath is like that is life, right? If there's no breath in the body, there is no life in the body. So by connecting with your breath, you can slow your nervous system down and connect with your heart. So move out of that survival mode and move into your heart space where that way you can connect with your soul, you can connect with the universe, with the divine,
Yep.
to figure out, to give yourself the space, to give yourself whatever it is that you needed. Because
Hmm.
realistically, these wounds that happened to us when we were children, you know, we might not get what we needed from those adults if they're even still here. They might not even be here to give you what you need, right? And if they are, they might not give it to you anyway. They might never see the way that you saw it or experience, they might not give it to you. So we have to be the ones to give it to ourselves in order to heal that wound. You have to be able to give yourself that love, give yourself that validation, give yourself that safety, because, those people might not be able to do that for you.
Yeah.
So it is all about just connecting with yourself, with your higher self, and changing the perspective, because when you're in it, when you're in that situation, you are a victim, perhaps. Whether,
Yeah.
regardless of what happened, you are a victim of that situation because it's become a trauma for you. So we can change that perspective to give you whatever you needed so that you are no longer the victim of that situation. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Because
Um,
as you continue to believe it, then you are, right? Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And also, like, going back to shadow work, realizing how we contribute to that situation, how we keep ourselves in victimhood, how we
Hmm.
keep, coming back to these patterns and not working on them,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Or all the different ways that we, like, hurt ourselves. Even some
Hmm.
shadows are dressed up as very nice and helpful,
Yep.
you know?
Yeah. I sit with that with my manager personality there. Yeah. The fixer and do
Yeah,
everything. Yes. And they I
absolutely.
mean well. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
That's a
Yeah.
big one for me too.
Yeah.
I like to call it the rescuer, right?
Yep.
I like to rescue people.
Hmm.
And one of the big things that I've had to learn is, when you rescue someone energetically, what you're telling them is that you don't believe that they can do it.
Yeah.
So you have to rescue them.
Yep.
And, that's not what
Hmm.
I want to be telling people. I believe everybody is their own savior, right? You have to
Hmm.
save yourself. No one else can save you.
Yeah.
So
That's so
by,
true.
you know, behaving like the rescuer, I don't want to tell someone that I don't believe that they can do it.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's just
No.
going inward and
Powerful.
without judgment,
Hmm.
with just love, with with the intention of growing, you know?
Yep.
Um, so that way we can just continue healing ourselves and healing the world. I mean, it's
Yeah.
hard out there.
It sure is. Yeah, we do need it. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think, just being able to also just speak to other people like this for me is very healing. Just to
Yeah.
know that this type of work is helping other people and, that you like that you like what you're doing and that you enjoy it and you came into that work because it's helped you personally. So that's an amazing story. So I'm just grateful for the opportunity that I can, share with you. And also I love that, I can kind of pick your brain as well because, I definitely want to do more in that line of work. Yeah,
Yeah.
love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's beautiful. It's a beautiful way to give people back their power,
Mhm.
right? Because we give it away just little by little every day,
Yep,
doing certain things. And this work, yeah, it just gives people back their power and helps people, realize their worth.
yep,
It helps people just live a happier life, which is
yep,
really, a more authentic life. We start putting on so many hats and suddenly you're like, I don't even recognize myself in the mirror anymore. Like, I don't know who this person is. This isn't a life I want to live.
right. Yeah,
Um, and it's just
yeah, and I'm sure
because,
we can all relate to, like, wanting to live a better life.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
And would you say that a lot of people suffer from, I shouldn't say suffer from, or they experience self-sabotaging like behaviors? Is that also something that kind of comes up for this type of work as well?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Because if you don't believe that you are worth it,
Mm-hmm.
you end up sabotaging,
Yep.
your situation. It kind of goes back again, right? To, like, the universe is always sending you signs. The universe is always guiding you in in a higher, to your higher self, right? To the best version of you. It's always kind of giving you the opportunity to change things, right? If an emotion comes up, that's just an indicator. It's the
Yep.
universe, it's God, it's whatever you call it, trying to be like, okay, here's something to work on. Do we want to keep this or do we want to throw this away so we can elevate?
Yep.
And so we if you don't believe that you're worthy of elevating, or that, that you didn't do anything to deserve this,
Hmm.
you're going to continue falling backwards. You know what I mean? Kind of falling for that same, because the universe is always going to bring it up. Okay, we're ready. We're ready to get rid
Right.
of, unworthiness. But
Right.
if you're not ready to get rid of it, or if you aren't aware of that you want to get rid of this, then you're just always going to kind of fall back into the same sort of trap.
Yep.
Because it is just the universe trying to help you kind of get over this obstacle so we can go to the next level. It's almost like video games, right? Like you have to
Hmm.
beat this boss in order to go to the next level,
Yeah, that's so
you
funny.
know?
I was just speaking in that same way to one of my daughters recently, my youngest
Hmm.
daughter. So I feel like it is that. It is the level there's levels to this, and
Yeah,
there's certain things that I have been able to achieve, once I have, had certain levels of doing the work, I'd say,
yeah,
and just being present, as we've talked about, of even knowing that there's work to do, was a big step for me. So yeah, so it's nice to know that we can start anywhere, in life. I've recently, only in the last few years, really been doing this type of work, and I feel like I've learned so much, in that time, and it's been, eye-opening for me to know that we can take control of our life anytime.
yeah,
Doesn't matter the age,
absolutely.
exactly, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. There's some women in this meditation course that are in their 60s,
Oh
going into
God.
their 70s, and it's that's today's the best day to start,
Right.
right? Because you can live the rest of your life still kind of staying stuck and repeating the same patterns, or you can start making the changes today.
Yep.
Doesn't matter where you are in that timeline.
Yep.
And I think I think that's why a lot of people are sort of trepidatious, because once you kind of become aware, then again, it's a choice, right? It becomes a choice. And some people want to stay, in where they are,
Yep.
because even though they might be unhappy or life is difficult or all that, it's what they know, and it's easier. It's easier.
Right.
The discomfort is easier than the comfort you don't know.
Right. The familiar, right? It's what
The
works with our
familiar,
brain. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's why also healing like isn't linear, right? Because you can
Mhm.
start kind of healing some things and then all of a sudden kind of fall back into something that you've been doing for however many years you are. It's hard
Mhm.
to change 30, 40, 50 years of programming to suddenly start doing things differently. It's not easy. And I think for a lot of people, that scares them. And I think for a lot of people, they'd rather just stay where they are, stay the same.
Right. It's easier, and yeah, you don't have to do much change. Your brain is comfy there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely learned through that, like with having the seizures that I had in the past, I really had to work through like different ways. And my neurologist talked to me about just maybe like trying different things that were like maybe out of the box, like brushing my teeth with my left hand, just getting my brain out of the patterns
Yeah.
that it was in, that were continuing on the seizures that I were having. So it just makes sense. And I've learned now more about like neuroplasticity and just how the brain can form these pathways and things that we can work on. We can make changes, and we don't need to be, stuck with these thoughts. So it's very powerful in the work that
Yeah.
you do. Yeah,
Yeah.
love
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. You can, like you said, we can always rewire our brains. We just have to be willing, you know? You just have to be willing to think differently and behave differently, right? Because you can't become a different person and keep doing the same things.
Right.
Um, but that's why hypnosis, I mean, that's why I just love it, because it's very gentle, right? You're just going into a state of deep relaxation to kind of become aware of those things that aren't making you happy, and then give yourself like love, give yourself
Mhm.
the positive things that you weren't able to get in that moment. So that way you can release those things, And
Yep.
it's not to say it's like easy, but I, one of my teachers always says, it's simple, but it's not easy,
Right.
And
So
that's
true.
that's kind of how it is. It's
Yeah.
simple, but it's not easy. That's why it's called work. You got to do the work.
Right. Yep.
Um, but
So
the
true.
alternative is, I mean, for me, not worth it to live the rest of my life kind of being miserable, taking antidepressants or numbing myself out
Yep.
with weed and antidepressants, right? Because
Yep.
that's also numbing you out.
Yeah.
Um,
And would you say part of that is also forgiving that version of yourself, like that you're referring to,
Absolutely.
right? Like
Yeah,
that yeah, I would say so.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Giving them permission, they didn't have the tools that you have now, right?
Yep.
I didn't have the tools now or back then that I have now. If I did, I wouldn't have been in that state, right? But I didn't.
Yep.
So I was doing the best that I could with what I had available to me, which was,
Yeah.
substances.
Yeah.
um,
Oh, that's so true. And yeah, and I've learned through this type of work that for me as well, like addiction is a big piece of that, of lacking connection, just and purpose, I'd say, and trying
mhm,
to create that. Trying to create the universe, right? Which we have right here. But yeah, so I forgive myself as well for those, like when we all do, for anything that we do, to feel safe. And
yeah,
that's feel like that's a level. That's one of those levels that we've talked
yeah,
about.
yeah,
The level of forgiving yourself, right? And then it goes from there, that I've discovered, to forgiving our parents and
yep,
etc. Right? And forgiving everyone, right?
yeah,
At a certain point,
yeah,
for this experience. Yeah.
yeah. Because
Yeah.
again, I mean, it's sort of the same thing. They didn't have the tools, right? I mean,
Yep.
not to say that that justifies anyone's, behaviors. It's never okay to hurt someone, but when
Hmm.
you finally start to heal, you realize that, people do really fucked up things when they're not
Yep.
when they don't have the resources, when they're in survival mode, and when they're just kind of like, what we talked about with that lion, she attacked that other
Yep.
lion. She said, "Get the fuck away from me," and wanted to hurt him when he's just trying to be like,
So
oh,
true.
whatever. And that's just how we react in those moments when you're in fight or flight, when you're in survival mode, you're just trying to survive. And we would do things that normally we wouldn't do, but you have
Yep.
to forgive yourself and forgive others for what they've done. Otherwise, you can't move up to the next level. You're always going to
Right.
stay stuck, right? Feeling that anger or that hate or that
Yep.
rage.
Yep.
And
I
yeah,
agree.
it's about,
So yeah, so I'm aware of those levels.
oh,
So
yeah.
what would we say is the next level? Is there one after that we need to know?
Well, I mean, I think first off,
Let's
I think
see.
it's never ending work, unfortunately, or
Right.
fortunately. I think we're always
Yep.
going to be finding new levels.
Yep.
But yeah, I think a big one, especially for women, is worthiness, right? It's
Hmm.
learning our worth, um, learning that we don't have to earn anything, right? We don't have to earn
Yep.
rest. We don't have to earn love. We are worthy of all of those things. I think that's a big one for women.
Yep.
Um,
For sure.
and then just learning to continue to feel the emotions. Sometimes for
Hmm.
me it's I catch myself. I'll catch myself avoiding kind of feeling, right? Even though I go into
Yep.
meditation and I'll meditate to kind of relax, I'm not really dealing with certain things that are
Hmm.
kind of a big deal in my life, but I don't want to deal with them
Right.
because that's going to
Yeah.
mess things up or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So I think it's
Yep.
constantly just checking in with yourself and with others, right? Not isolating.
Hmm.
So that way we can
Yep.
constantly just continue to evolve. Um,
Yep.
and yeah, I
I think
think,
that's
I
a big
think,
one. The
f-
not isolating.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I
Yeah. Yeah.
shame grows and festers like in the
Hmm.
dark. When we don't tell someone something, that's how shame grows. And, shame is almost one of the
Yep.
easiest ones, I think, even though that's, but it's almost one of the easier shadows to kind of let go of, because all you have to do is bring it into the light. And as soon as you bring it into the
Yep.
light, you realize that it's, a lot of people, so many of us are in that same boat. And if
Hmm.
you just let things out into the light, they start like to disperse a little bit, you know?
Right. Yep.
Um,
Yeah. If you could say the words, then you could, deal with it. You could
yeah,
figure it out.
yeah.
Yeah.
But when you're avoiding them, that's when they grow bigger and bigger and bigger and become even more,
Yep.
and a lot of times shame was just placed on us. People made us feel
Hmm.
ashamed about things, you know?
Yep.
So yeah, I think there's a lot of different levels, and I think they're different for everyone. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, those are, I think, the biggest ones that I can think of is really shame and worthiness.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I'd say like there's ways that we can go about figuring these things out of different areas that we all kind of as humans have to work through, like shame and worthiness and self-worth. Um, and I'm sure there's more, you know, that are kind of just the ways that the things that we need to deal with that we don't want to. And I can speak for my own self. And that of those are the things that are at the root issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Yeah, usually, like I said, once we get to the root, I mean, oftentimes, once you pour love down there and light, a lot of times it becomes, you can carry it again.
Yeah.
Where, because we've been, covering it up with so much stuff to not think about it, it's a huge weight that we're constantly carrying with us. And once you start, with somebody who you trust, who you can have that safety with to be able to go like into those darker layers, right? You're able to share that weight a little bit with someone until you
Hmm.
finally kind of, with love and with light or whatever it is that you needed, you're able to remove a lot of that weight, get rid of it and just let it go. Because a
Yep.
lot of times we carry that as just protection.
Yep. Yeah.
Um,
And I find that ways that I kind of let that go now is going into nature and just
mhm.
like going into the trees and asking the trees to help me with some of this energy that I have and
Yeah,
things like that.
I love that.
Yeah, to release it. Yeah, so I feel like that's really helped me and just connecting more to just outside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And would you find when you were in Sedona, how was that? Can you talk about
Uh,
that a little bit?
yeah,
Connecting?
it was great. I mean, talk about nature. Nature helped to heal a lot for me. And kind of talking about that, those signs that we get from the universe. I remember one day we had like a silent meditation where we were silent all day. Um, and I remember just like looking at the red rocks and seeing like for the first time like really seeing how old they were, right? Because you see like how they're eroded and you see all those like the striations in there, and it just really made me realize like these even the mountains erode, right? They're
Hmm.
huge, strong, like but they erode with enough time and with enough water, right? All of that, and they're not worrying about where they're going, right? That they're eroding. They're just
Yep.
being. They're
Yep.
strong and they're being. And, it's just again like noticing all the little things and noticing all the messages in nature, noticing what animals would pop up for me. At one point I was thinking about my future and learning to kind of surrender to like the divine and not feeling the need to control so many different things in my life. And there was like a woodpecker on the tree right above me, which is all the time whenever I see an animal in the moment I'll look it up, just like with my angel numbers. I'm like, what does this mean? Like, you
Mhm.
know and,
Yeah, me too.
woodpeckers are like resistance, having like
Oh.
perseverance for hard things that seem impossible, but to keep on, that path.
Yep.
Um,
Love that.
all those things. Yeah, no,
Yep.
Sedona it's very beautiful, and it's right up my alley. I mean, you go there, everyone is so spiritual, and it's just really nice. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love
I love
Sedona.
that. Yeah, it's beautiful. I was there a couple years ago. I love the like the rocks there, and yeah, that's
Mhm.
just the energy feels great.
Yeah.
But do you ever get other like readings outside? Like, do you ever get like tarot or any other type of? I know they have a lot of different shops and things out there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Every time I go there, I get
Yeah.
a reading. I got my natal chart reading
Oh, cool.
when I went in the fall, which was very cool. And then this time I went and I did like a reading with a healer who specializes in like the divine feminine.
Oh, nice.
So that was really cool. Um, and yeah, it's just about being like open in that moment to like receive whatever messages. And also, I go kind of just for fun, just because like we're there and it's
Mhm.
fun. But I do truly believe that like we have all those messages like within
Mhm.
us, right? The
Yeah.
reader is just able to kind of say it to us in words.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
but all those messages lie within us. I can give you an example. When I
Mhm.
went to the Divine Feminine reader, she was like, you have a lot of like energy, like, baby energy around you, all of this stuff. And I was like, oh, well, I'm on birth control, so I don't know. And she's like, well, I'm not telling you what to do, but there's a lot of like psychic and like intuition, like psychic abilities and like intuition that you block
Hmm.
when you are on birth control because we as
Mhm.
women get a lot of that intuition from our
Mhm.
wombs.
Mhm.
Um, and I
Mm.
swear for years I have been thinking, I'm like, I need to get off birth control just because I've been on it for so long,
Mhm.
most of my life, more than half of my life I've been on it. And so I've been thinking for the last couple years, I want to get off birth control just to get regular, just to see what it's like, just to and I was like, this is the sign that I needed. I knew
Yeah.
I've been feeling that for years,
That makes sense
you
for
know,
sure.
but just to
Yeah.
have someone kind of tell me like there's so much intuition and psychic abilities that you're blocking, I immediately thought of my work. Like I'm almost in
Mhm.
a way like hindering my work, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? By not being able to tap into that intuition and
Mhm.
those like abilities that we get from
Yep.
just being in cycle with like the moon, being in
Yeah.
cycle with other women instead of like it being, from birth control.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And that brings to mind like something I saw recently of just like how we carry weight as women sometimes is like in our stomachs as well. I feel like that's protection of our womb as well,
Yeah.
sometimes to protect ourselves, to feel safe.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Absolutely.
important. There's a whole portal there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Literally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it is once you kind of stop and get in touch with the stillness. I mean, I think that's how we can like calm ourselves down enough is by getting in touch with like the stillness in our bodies, being able to, get in touch with just a higher source. Um, Getting in touch with that stillness allows us to hear those messages. It allows us to ask those questions and kind of
Right.
get those answers, or feel the answers. Everybody has like their senses that they work with. Um, but I think that that's again why meditation is so important to me is just
Mhm.
to be able to connect with that stillness, with that presence, to be able to become more aware of
Yeah.
yeah what it is that the universe is trying to help, where it's trying to guide you, because I think it's
Mhm.
always guiding us.
That's true. Yeah. It's like it's infinite, right? And we have this guidance that's always there. And we're never alone in that sense of like we
Yeah,
always have this guidance. And to me now that's reassuring and I feel like grateful for that experience. So
yeah,
yeah, I look forward to trying to make it to one of your meditation, the guided meditations that you offer, because I've really never done something like that. I just do like my own type of things that I do. to
Yeah.
quiet myself, but I've never actually done like a meditation in that way. So yeah, I would love to do that. And I have my
Yeah.
kitty cat right here
I love it.
trying to get on. She's so cute.
I know. I think that's another, I think animals, oftentimes when I'm doing hypnosis, animals will come into the picture because I think they can feel our vibes, and they
Yeah,
want to be like involved.
that is so
Um,
true.
and I
Yeah.
definitely think kitty cats are like a divine
Oh, for
species,
sure. I know that's why I'm connected. And the divine thing, I love how we share that because that name just really sticks for me. And that's why it's in my tarot name as well. I feel like
Hmm.
I'm guided now to the divine, and it's great to be able to help others to
Hmm.
connect in the ways that I do and that you do. So yeah, so I look forward to us connecting again, and I know you'll be here next Friday to be able to share more about what you do. So I look
Yes.
forward to that as
Yeah,
well.
I'm super
Cool.
excited, and you are always welcome to a meditation.
Ooh, I love
I
that.
love to do one-on-one work. That's really
Oh,
where
okay.
we kind of get to like the root, right? That we talked
Mhm.
about earlier. That's how we can
Yeah,
get to the root of everyone's specific levels that they're working on.
yeah,
But there's also something very special and powerful about healing, like in community.
yeah.
So my group meditations are always there's always a different theme, but they're always very beautiful and powerful because just
Yeah.
coming all together and like increasing the container, right? We can
Mhm.
all, the more people there are, the more you can hold, which is why doing a lot of this work like with someone else, right? With
Yeah.
a hypnotist that can help guide or hold that container with you.
Mhm.
It's easier, right? Because
Yeah,
there's more space. We can now, there's two people holding space instead of just one.
right.
And so, yeah, my group meditations are great because there's something very like just magical about
Yeah,
having different more than just different people in a
right.
space. So you are always welcome.
Well, I feel like,
There,
yeah, I definitely want to now. That makes it feel like, just like the universe kind of probably guides that, the energies that are there as
yeah,
well for that. Yeah, that's cool.
absolutely. And I
Okay.
think, nothing's by accident, as we talked about. So every soul that shows up in each circle was meant to be there, and has its own purpose for being there. And so, yeah, it's beautiful. So, yeah, I can't wait to have you in one of them for sure.
Yeah,
And
that's
I'm
cool.
so grateful to be back next week so we can chat more.
Yeah.
And yeah,
That sounds
I,
great. Yeah,
I
and I would love to next week talk more about that guided meditation and kind of maybe how that works,
yeah,
and your experience is cool. But yeah, kind of
absolutely.
anything that you'd like to talk about before we wrap up? Anything
Um,
you want to share or anything?
So, I think we did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
You can find me on Instagram. That's my main platform right now. And at, I guess, Isabella Jopiz, Llopiz. And there, I like to have fun with hypnosis and with all this stuff. I like to, you'll see funny videos sometimes, you'll see educational stuff, but because it doesn't have to be so serious, we're
Right.
here for a good time, not a long time. So we just have to make the best of it, and just heal in community, heal with safe people so that we can continue living a happy life. You don't need to go through life feeling stuck or feeling alone or feeling miserable. There is support, there is help, there are people. I believe the universe put us in the same path to, bring like healing to the world. To, anybody listening to this right now is receiving a healing from us.
Yeah.
And we're receiving a healing from them healing. You know what I mean? So it's all beautiful,
And
and
it's infinite,
it's
right?
infinite.
It's
Yeah, it's
yep.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm very
Love that.
grateful for the opportunity to chat with you and to chat with your audience. And I so look forward to being back.
Cool. Yeah, and thank you so much. And yeah, I will see you soon. And have
Yeah.
a good rest of your evening.
Thank you so much,
All right.
Christine.
All right. Bye
All right.
bye.
Bye.
All right. And we'll stop recording and play the outro.